Good afternoon. There we go. Do we have any sign-up sheets that we? Okay. Good afternoon. Try again. Okay, there you go. Sometimes we're on, sometimes we're off. Good afternoon, everyone, and I will call the meeting of the House Higher Education Committee to order. Thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We have 4 items on the agenda. Announce we have heard SB 333 previously. We've heard SB 397 previously. I haven't received any questions back on those 2 bills. We were going to be poised to take action on those today. Given the House's schedule in that we will not be meeting tomorrow, there's no chance for those bills to be third read until Friday morning. We're meeting tomorrow. So I will give the committee an additional day to look over those. And if anything came from just a typographical issue, we'll have 24 more hours to look at it. I don't think that's the case, but at this point, to best use our time, we'll come back and act on those. Senator Albers was here. I don't know if Senator Goodman, I'd actually spoken with somebody in his office and told him he did not have to come for that. If anyone on the committee has questions regards to those 2 measures, let us know. We had the hearing on those and opened up for comment at our last meeting. So with that, let me also explain on Senate Bill 231, we're going to have a presentation about what the bill is trying to accomplish. There's not a language in your packet, so because we're gonna let the folks that are bringing us the idea. The language has moved around a bit, and so I wanted us to hear the idea, and then we'll develop language around that, because there's a couple of different places the language is. So I want us to concentrate on the what we were trying to accomplish, rather than the language of so doing. So with that, we're going to go. Senator Strickland, are you here? I think I saw you. Yeah, we're going to go without further delay and ask Senator Strickland of the 17th to tell us about Senate Bill 379. And Senator, tell us so we make sure we're on the same LC with you. I have LC 432317S.
That's right. Full candor, I had the old LC with last committee, and I had the wrong bill with me. But thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. If you don't mind, while in case there's a question, it's almost exactly the same. But all right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I bring to you Senate Bill 379. This is a bill that last fall, a group of folks came together, all the folks that you'll see referenced in the bill, the departments, and a lot of people that work on higher ed in our state, and came up with this idea of capitalizing on the federal apprenticeship program that's already in existence, and taking that and codifying it in state code, and then putting money there and actually doubling down and doubling the program, making it a state program in our state as well. Some of the other states have done. And we've seen the numbers in neighboring states when they take on apprenticeship programs like this, and not just rely upon the federal government to run the program itself, and the success that comes with that. And that's, from a macro standpoint, what this bill is trying to accomplish, is codify an apprenticeship program using the federal definition, using a federal program that's already in existence, matching it with state funds is $1.2 million in the state budget that goes with this, and then making it where, as I said, on the Senate side, we're the #1 state in the country in which to do business. We all brag about that, especially during campaign time every year. And how many years in a row? 8, 9, whatever it is now in a row. But one of the challenges, especially coming out of COVID, that's unique to Georgia, but also something that's happened nationwide, is we're so great for business, but what happens when a business needs to hire somebody? We all hear the stories. Some of us experience that personally, trying to hire somebody right now in particular. And this is a way that this bill is definitely a win for a worker, a student, somebody that wants a second career, the ability to go and get on the job training, get experience now versus paying for going to school, doing this through our technical college system, getting a certificate through it all, getting experience. It's great for the worker. But I think it's also important to mention this is so great for the small business owner, the big business owner, whoever it is that needs people now. And this is one of those circumstances where it truly is a win-win. I'm not sure who wins more, but it allows us to get people plugged now in those high demand jobs in our state. It allows people to get to work now and get experience now and hopefully get our economy going here in Georgia and keep our economy here in Georgia going. That's what we're trying to accomplish from a policy standpoint. I'll walk through the bill briefly and then we'll jump into questions. I know you'll see in the first section on page 2 is all the definitions, and you'll see we reference the federal program. We talk about an apprenticeship sponsor, and that's the business owner, if you will, that could apply to get these grants to have someone work for them as an apprentice. And then you get down to the board that oversees all of this, that's the State Board of the Technical College System of Georgia. You go to the next page. This is where you get into making sure that all of our instrumentalities of our government departments are working together for this program. You see the board being the Technical College System of Georgia Board in coordination with the Department of Labor, Department of Economic Development, the Office of Planning and Budget, all coming together and creating this also through the Office of Workforce Development, coming together to make sure this program flows, have everybody singing from the same sheet of music here. You get down on line 60 on page 3, you see how the program actually works, the rules that happens for the employers, and there's a limit as to how much per apprentice an employer can also get through this. You see the ability of the employer on line 65 to enter into contracts to actually set forth this program that's done through our technical college system. Getting into page 4 of the bill, a big part of this, as we do with other things, is trying to make sure that we are giving guidance to these departments to focus on high demand jobs. And so you have the publishing on line 70 through 74 of the high demand career initiatives that with high demand careers that we are identifying as the ones we want to focus on in our state. Then you get down to the sunshine part of this, line 76 through 90, having annual reporting of what's going on with this program, the total amount of money that's going out. Of course, this is all subject to us approving the budget, but still where it all goes. And then you see the general rulemaking authority for the board to make this program work and enter into contracts. There at the bottom of page 4 going into page 5. And lastly, you have a sunset on this. So it forces us with any sunset to revisit the program in a few years to make sure this is something we want to keep going in our state. All the time in judiciary, somebody says, I'm not a lawyer, but, and that means they want somebody else to explain some of the language of the bill. I may be a lawyer, but I work with people much smarter than me who work in these departments to craft this language to make sure it's done correctly. And so if I don't know the answer to your question about a certain line, more people may be speaking that maybe to answer those questions for you. I think this is something though that's going to be good for our workers, as I said when I started, but also for our businesses in our state. In the Senate side, there was no one that spoke against it. We took 2 hearings to make sure we got it right. And I know you can do the same thing, obviously on our side, on your side as well, but with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. All right.
Pardon me, I didn't see the order, but I do know number 26 came up first. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Strickland, for bringing this bill. So I'm trying just to summarize what this bill is trying to accomplish. It's trying to merge employers and students and the technical colleges for an like on-hands education, so that while the students are learning, when they are actually leaving the technical college, they have the practical experience and the theoretical experiences. So as you might hear, I'm a little bit familiar with the German apprenticeship program, which is a little bit different than this. But one of the things that is interesting to me, the German apprenticeship program is basically very much employer driven, because the employers basically pay for the education. They pay the students and they also contribute to the college education. So here now understanding is that the state is going to come in and provide grants for the technical. Do I get that correct? So with this grant money, I don't have quite an idea how much this would cost, but I know education is a big investment. So, and we want the employers and the student to be invested in this program. So could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, and I want to, and again, people behind me may correct some of the things I say. And so knowing that, you don't necessarily have to be a student at a technical college. You could be someone that just wants to team up with a business right now. And the way we did this, we have the technical college system board overseeing this, and we have it to where when someone completes the program pursuant to the contract the board enters with an employer that applies for this, then the employee gets a certificate of completion. So you obviously get the work experience. Hopefully you're building a career. Hopefully you don't have to ever have an interview again, right? You have your own career you're building, but you get a certificate along with that that goes with that. So it's not just someone that's already going to our technical school that wants to also get some practical experience, a little bit bigger than that. The other side of this, a couple of things. One, we have to fund it. So there's always a cap as how much money we'll put into the budget for the program. You also have the limit on line 64 of $10,000 per apprentice. And that's something that's worked out between the employer and the department or the board that's coordinating this and doing that contract as to the exact amount of cost that goes into that. And I know on the Senate side, some of the folks over in Coweta County that work in the German model actually spoke in favor of this and gave examples of what they're doing. And the idea, my understanding, is to try to duplicate that on an even bigger scale in our state.
Thank you, sir. Can you remind me, I think you mentioned that you had included money in the budget this year about.
Yeah, I believe the number was 1.2 million. I
Okay.
know I said that. Is that correct?
That's close enough.
Close? More or less? A little more, 1.4? 1 point, we got 1.2 something. I was
1.2
right.
something, million here, million there. Yes, number 27.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern was, I noticed you referred to the technical schools and what have you, but what happens if you have the organized labor forces that also have an apprentice program? How does that fit into this?
Yeah, and so the definition on lines 29 through 35, it defines what an apprenticeship sponsor is.
Okay,
And this is, this is one of those things where you give guardrails and you give definitions, but there's also flexibility you're given to of course, the people that are involved working on this with the technical college system, others involved. But that is the definition. And on line 30 is any entity operating an apprenticeship program. And then you see apprenticeship programs defined right above that, lines 25 through 28, as the program that's currently registered to the U.S. Department of
okay,
Labor.
labor.
So the short answer is anyone that currently meets the definition of the federal program can now go through the state program. And so someone mentioned early on is if there's an existing union group, for example, that has an apprenticeship program, are they left out of this? No, unless they're not using the federal program. This is all based on the federal money that we're already getting, that we're investing more in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thank you for bringing this forward. I'm looking at line 70 through 74, which are defining how we're going to define what a high demand job is. So do I understand correctly that the funds for this apprenticeship program will be limited to those in the field that are considered high demand? And are we deciding what a high demand job is once in 2022 and not changing it again for 5 years? Or is there some fluidity in making that decision?
So the second question is easy to answer, and we require, as you see here on line 71, annually the publication from the Office of Workforce Development of this list. So it is updated. It's not a one-time thing. So that's easier answer. I know the guidance we're giving is, and I'm looking for the language here to make sure I find the exact line. You look on lines 49 through 51, the purpose of the program is to focus on these high demand jobs. So the lawyer answer would be, no, you're not necessarily tied to that, but that's the whole purpose. We set up in the law that they're supposed to publish this list, and then we're supposed to use that list. And that's also a benefit of employers to know if their business matches that and they can apply to become a sponsor. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Can I follow up, Senator? And I know we tend to do this. Senate does with House bills, House does with Senate bills, but something just to consider is on lines 70 and 71 would think about this and get back with us.
Mhm.
You say shall create annually. Maybe we would think about putting at least annually, because if there was something that was moving, we're living in a dynamic world. If there was something that wanted to, you'd hate to just miss it if you published it June 30th and then a new industry came in. So just something to consider.
Yeah.
Again, we're not looking to to wordsmith your proposition, but I don't know that you would be prohibited as it reads now from doing it more than annually. And I'll let you lawyer that one for us. But I think that the create annually means it has to be done at least once a year and not prohibited from doing it, update it more than that. You have a couple more questions. Number 4, President Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much for bringing this bill. I'm a big fan of apprenticeship programs. Just a couple of questions. Going back to line 64, where it says that the contract completion award that will go to the employer will not exceed or shall not exceed 10,000. Can the employer offer more to the apprentice that is working for them, so that they would just be supplementing what they're offering to the apprentice?
Yes, and that number is meant to be the cost, obviously the amount of grant they get. And so whether or not that's what they fully pay the person, or whether that's paying for part of the job itself that's created. But there's one caveat to that. In here also, you cannot use the money to pay for equipment for a company that is going to be used beyond this one person. So that cost will be somewhat limited based on that rule. But the answer is yes, you could go more than that. That's just the grant amount. And a business may make different decisions on this. Again, this is a win for a business as well. And they may choose to invest a lot more than that in somebody, especially in today's market, right?
And can I ask a follow-up? Sure. Thank you. And then so if we go down to line 66, where it says that employer sponsors are only eligible to enter contracts for up to 5 apprentices. So are we just saying they can only use 5 apprentices specifically for this program? Or if they participate in this program, they can only have 5 apprentices?
Yeah, it's the first part. The idea of that was we don't want to obviously give one company all the grant money, so it divides it up, but nothing would keep someone from still doing their own apprenticeship programs. But the word apprentice is defined here, and so it's limited to this particular grant program.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think further to define there is the employer shall only be eligible to enter into contracts under this article
There you
for
go.
5. So it doesn't
Even better.
have an impact on their apprenticeships outside the context of this legislation. Number 14, Secretary of the Committee, Representative Benham.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Senator. Thank you for bringing this legislation and, not to confuse the conversation and not to offend anyone, but I have to ask this question as we're discussing apprenticeships, because in the mortuary industry.
I didn't know this where you're going to go.
Yes.
There's some festival you have every year too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it cherry blossom? I forgot what
The strawberry festival,
Strawberry.
the
He
strawberry
said cherry
festival.
blossom.
So
Messed that up. I'm sorry.
in the mortuary business, apprentices are required to put in over 3,000 hours, 18 months, 40 hours per week to become a licensed funeral director and embalmer
Mhm.
in the state of Georgia. How would this bill, with the language now, impact funeral homes? Because unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the death care industry is considered a high demand, in my opinion,
Yeah.
high demand type job. And right now in the state of Georgia, you're required to be a licensed funeral director and licensed embalmer to work in this industry. So how does can this bill help the funeral industry?
So it could. It's obviously going to have no impact on the current rules for licensing. But if your industry you identified as a high demand industry, and then you apply for one of these grants and it's granted, then obviously you could benefit. So nothing would keep someone from that industry from trying to take advantage of this, but it otherwise would have no impact on that industry or any of the rules you have now as far as licensing, of course.
So me as a small business owner operating a mortuary could possibly apply for a grant through this bill.
The only thing I'll say, as long as you'd meet the current federal guidelines with the
Okay.
federal program, Department of Labor, then yes. nothing would preclude you from doing that.
Okay, thank you.
And Representative, I'm gonna ask when we get further in between today and tomorrow, or when if somebody can help us understand exactly what a straw man would look like and what you need to meet to be part of that program. But this is number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Strickland, thank you for the bill. So I was wondering, I think it's a great idea, but I was wondering if you could provide additional information about the contract and the structure of how that would operate. Specifically on lines 54, it says that the contract would be between TCSG and an employer, but that it would have to name a specific apprentice. And line 19 says an apprentice may be as young as 15 years old.
Right.
So would this potentially be or require a contract between 3 entities, one potentially being a minor, or is it just between a potential employer and TCSG?
I'll let some of the others speaking after me clarify, but I think it would require everybody to be the contracts are between the sponsor, the employer, and the board, is my understanding. I don't know if there's a separate contract that is actually entered into from a contract standpoint with the actual apprentice, but I'll let somebody else answer that if I'm wrong.
Thank you. Otherwise, great bill.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think some of my questions have been cleared. I appreciate you wanting, and that my main question was what it takes to be in this apprenticeship program as an employer. I'd love to be clear. I'd like to, hopefully it would apply to some smaller programs, wouldn't have too much red tape, and to prevent smaller companies from being able to take advantage of this. And unless I'm reading it wrong, this bill is not a shall for high demand jobs.
Correct.
You're just suggesting that they be high demand jobs. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work. But I think we need to maybe talk about whether it is or it, and would be open up to all types jobs for an employer, or either just a high demand. It just occurs to me. But I really, hopefully it's not too much of a burden for smaller type of businesses that are needing and want to go in apprenticeship program. I'm a big fan of it. And so thank you for the bill. But I hope it's tailored more for our businesses here in the state of Georgia instead of some large, big manufacturing.
Right. And only response I'll have to that is the language in the bill you see, we state our purpose. The biggest part, going to your point, is line 47, the purpose of programs to incentivize apprenticeship sponsors to establish new or grow existing registered apprenticeship programs. And we go on there to talk about expanding high quality work-based learning experiences in high demand fields. And so at the end of the day, the path we took overall with this bill is to not, from a policy standpoint, box in the technical college system board and the other entities involved in this, and to give some flexibility on purpose, knowing that, again, we have to fund this. There's so much disclosure required. We'll see exactly what's going on. So we can come back down the road, not just through appropriations, but possibly put more guardrails on if necessary. Even though we have apprenticeship programs in our state, this is something new that we're starting, having our state take this on. And so whatever guardrails we decide to put is fine, of course, but keep in mind, my thought from the Senate standpoint, we tried to be as flexible as we could and take a little bit different approach to just more state our purpose at this point.
Thank you. Good answer.
Thanks, Chairman. Would it be fair, and then you have a further question, but would it be fair to say this is focused on getting the apprenticeship programs done, not focused on the employers? It's not meant to be, and I would suffice it to say, the reason we're providing this incentive is providing sometimes an apprenticeship program is a little bit harder on an employer or a labor union to bring new people in and train them up. So we're trying to incentivize that. I know in the medical field, I think it's hard to get what's referred to as clinicals. I mean, we can make a lot of nurses, but getting hospitals to take them on is a difficult situation. So what you're trying to do here is provide some incentive to the finding. And so if there are small businesses that want to step up and and create learning experiences and then bring people in. We're doing that. Number 16, was that you, Chairman Carpenter?
That work? All right, thank you. So, yeah, I do want to touch base on the 15-year-old piece. Does that have possibility of being maybe somebody in the video game industry? Is that the kind of thought process of making it 15 years old? And then my next question is, I'm sorry, my mind went blank on that. If you'll, the funding mechanism from as far as the technical college, will they be funded at the state level for that person as a student as well for administering the program, or how's that piece going to work?
Let's get the answer on that one. I don't think they are. I don't think they're considered a student, but I may be wrong. So let's get the answer on that. Your first question, as we all know, now we're seeing high school kids starting to get college degrees in high school, right? It's a great thing how we've changed the model just since I graduated high school as to how we approach education. And so we were trying to be on purpose, capture as many people as we can, have it where a young person can start early on with their educational career through an apprenticeship program. So that was the age we went at on there. But let's get the answer to your other question on the state, whether or not they're still considered a student. I don't believe they are, but let's get the answer to that.
Sure. And I appreciate the bill because it, really, you think about how many people leave college to go into a field that they always wanted to go into, and they're no smarter the day they step on the job than they did when they stepped on the college campus in regards to how to actually do that job. So I appreciate you bringing the bill.
Senator, that clears up all our questions. We're going to go into did you have anybody that you were leaning to
I
help
don't know
you
who
with?
signed up to speak, but
Well, then that's fine. I just didn't know if you
Sure.
had somebody with
no, there's a lot of good
TCSG.
folks. I don't
No,
know.
I just didn't know if you had somebody with TCSG that you wanted to,
No.
well, let me do that if I can, because I see Mark back here. If you would come and, let me just ask you that question, and then we'll go to our speakers list. Is this something that TCSG contemplates as being a formula funding or for the student, or are you just gonna, handle the administration of this, out of the goodness of your heart and the, administrative budgets you currently have?
Well, we do a lot of things, goodness for our heart, Mr. Chairman. So I
That
appreciate
that
question.
was not poking
So,
fun at you.
so I-
That
I
was a true
appreciate that
statement.
question.
Yes, sir.
But the real answer to that question honestly depends on the structure of the individualized program. And so there will be some programs, like the representative mentioned, the German programs earlier. Those programs, to answer a couple questions at once, start at 15 because it takes about 2.5 years for a student to go through that program. And based on the requirement of that business, that student earns technical college certifications and certificates, and perhaps even an associate's degree as they work to finish through that particular apprenticeship program. So in that case, where a student is enrolled formally in one of our programs, because that's what works for the apprenticeship, then that student would be enrolled as one of our students. You might find another business that sets up an apprenticeship program that is perhaps more hands-on, and they don't take as many courses on the technical college side, or maybe not any, it depending on what they need, what their specific need would be. And that would be based on that need of the industry and the way that particular apprenticeship was set up. So in that case, that student would not be counted in our funding formula because they might not be taking any classes with us. So it really depends on the way we see it happening is based on the individual need for that specific business and how they want to structure the program going forward. So.
Thank you. And do we have a speakers list, or we're just gonna, oh, here we are, I'm sorry. Okay, he's on Zoom. Okay, I'm sorry. We have Mark Whitlock. Are you with us electronically there?
Mr. Chairman, I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Mark Whitlock. I'm the CEO of Central Educational Center, Georgia's first college and career academy. We're located in Coweta County. I sent 2 documents, the apprenticeship schedule for our program and a frequently asked questions document to your office earlier today. I support Senate Bill 379 and appreciate all the work that's gone into developing the bill. And I want to explain why I support the bill by sharing some words from a CEC board member, Mr. David Keller, who's the recently retired CEO of EGO North America, a manufacturing facility located here in our community. Mr. Keller said it this way: in 2016, we partnered with 7 other companies in Coweta to start a German-style apprenticeship program to train advanced manufacturing technicians beginning at age 15. We partnered with CEC, with the TCSG through West Georgia Tech, and with Georgia Tech through their Georgia Manufacturing Extension Partnership. The German American Chamber of Commerce certifies and supports us throughout the program. And through TCSG, we also ensured our program is registered with the US DOL apprenticeship system. Through DOE, we have the state-approved work-based learning program that's essential to apprenticeship for high school students. We've been able to closely replicate in Georgia a globally recognized apprenticeship model that annually trains 1.4 million students across 350 different careers in Germany. For EGO North America, this has been a highly successful and beneficial program. The cost of the program are not insignificant to a small company like EGO. In total, the 3-year program will cost most companies at least $25,000 per apprentice. And with this, we've got no guarantee that at the end of the program, our apprentices will remain with our company, but the risk of doing nothing is even greater. Continuous improvement, including automation, is critical to sustaining manufacturing in the US in the face of inflation and labor shortages. Small to mid-sized companies are not big enough to develop dedicated in-house training centers. So by partnering with educators and our fellow manufacturing companies, we can do something critical to our survival. EGO's direct competition manufactures in Mexico. EGO can produce here in Georgia if we have highly skilled employees to develop and maintain our highly automated manufacturing systems. The apprenticeship model here in Georgia, developed for the first time in the US, gives us a fighting chance. It's doing the same for all the companies who've decided to participate across the state. Georgia will continue to be the #1 state to do business. If we continue to show the world, we will invest in ourselves. This bill is about training youth and creating a pipeline for good paying jobs in Georgia, and we support it. And Mr. Chairman, I would add that Georgia's dual enrollment graduation option B, the cooperation among TCSG, DOE, the Georgia Student Finance Commission, provide an environment in which a rigorous program like this one can allow young people to graduate from high school by completing technical college, international certification, and immediately starting a well-paying high-skilled career. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. And I would let the committee members know that we've communicated with the office, and Ms. Bancroft will get those documents. They just arrived this morning. We'll get those out to folks by email after the meeting here. So we'll have those before we get back to 379. Mr. Roy Bowen. Mr. Bowen, you can stand or sit, whatever. I'll just tell me where you're going. I'll turn on the right mic. I don't know, would y'all prefer we make him stand up? What do you think? No. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Roy Bowen with the Georgia Association of Manufacturers. I'm proud to say that EGO is a member of the Georgia Association of Manufacturers. Certainly want to thank Senator Strickland along with the other 30 senators from both sides of the aisle who sponsored Senate Bill 379, and really welcome the opportunity to address this higher education committee. Mr. Chairman, I think this is the first time I've been before your committee. GAM is in strong support of this bipartisan legislation that helps to address the #1 issue facing Georgia manufacturers, and that's the availability of talent, especially on the advanced manufacturing floor. And what the General Assembly and state leadership have done to position Georgia as the #1 state to do business will be undercut if we don't have an adequate pool of talent. The National Association of Manufacturers says that 27% of the nation's current industrial workforce is over age 55. And consequently, U.S. manufacturing base will need to fill an estimated 3.5 million jobs over the next decade simply to address age-related attrition among its workforce. Industry executives consistently identify the difficulty in attracting, training, and maintaining the next generation of production workers as one of the leading problems for U.S. manufacturers. The public-private partnership that the Senate bill encourages will help to create work-based learning pathways for meaningful employment opportunities for young Georgians that will lead to productive and successful livelihoods. There is an abundance of evidence that structured apprenticeship programs work. We heard about the EGO model today. They work for a young student in search of a career, for an employer eager to grow and retain talent, and for the state by way of gaining a workforce that contributes to Georgia's economy. The investment made by Georgia to develop talent via the apprenticeship program embodied in this bill is more than matched by the employers who will employ the apprentices and launch their career. We believe that this bill is well structured, allows for stakeholder engagement and input, and provides for accountability by way of an annual report. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we strongly urge your favorable consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee have questions for Mr. Bowen? I see none. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Mr. Woodall. Associated General Contractors. Mr. Woodall prefers to stand. I have to work with my, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mark Woodall with Associated General Contractors. We are the statewide trade association that represents the commercial sector, commercial general contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers. We are enthusiastically in favor of this bill. Our number one challenge is currently and has been for some time getting skilled labor on our job sites. We've done some interesting things. I know Representative Washburn and Representative Dickey and Mathiak have gone to what we're doing at the local level with these skills challenges with certified high school programs, and the enthusiasm, the participation, and the parents opening their eyes up to see what these careers pay has been incredible. But this is another tool in the toolbox that certainly could help us get these folks on board, and we very much are in favor of it. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions for any. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I see no questions. Questions for the gentleman? I see no questions. Thank you. Anyone else? That's all we had. I had on the sign up sheet. Yes, sir. I'm gonna, we have time. What's the over and under? Shall he stand or shall he sit?
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. I didn't see the sign-in sheet when I came in. I appreciate you allowing me to address the committee. My name is Brett Hume. I'm with the Southeastern Carpenters Regional Council. And although we've heard a lot about manufacturing, I want to limit this conversation to construction. In reference to the bill, a lot of these items have been met, and I'm here to support the bill. There are some concerns which I feel realistically can be worked out to make this fair and equitable for all. Line 30 that the chairman referred to, any operating apprenticeship program. I'm going to come back to that in a second. 36 through 38, the work source board currently for construction identifies high demand crafts as carpenters, electricians, HVAC, and industrial mechanics only for construction currently. So we're looking at those four crafts in terms of construction. The purpose of the program, we agree with 100%. Create and grow existing programs. 60 through 64, I have a problem with, because if I can give you a 30,000-foot view of the industry, in terms of construction, when workers show up on the job, they work themselves out of work, if you think in terms of the project, right? So unless that contractor has a secondary project and a third, there's overhead that these businesses have to carry, keeping that manpower occupied so they don't lose them to somebody else. In our world, our contractor partners have made the free market decision to invest in these training programs. So our training programs are multi-employer funded. So that an example I gave you, if contractor X completes a project and doesn't have something immediately to move that workforce, they refer them back to us, we place them elsewhere. And then when contractor X picks up another project, we supply manpower. Okay, so all this is privately funded. All right, so I'm going to suggest to you, number one, that these contractors that are privately funding and chose the business model to invest in a certified, registered, US DOL approved training program are now going to be paying twice through their tax dollars to also fund this program. That being said, in order to receive any kind of return as this bill is written, only the contractor that employs the apprentice upon graduation is eligible to receive up to $10,000. So in my example, we have apprentices that may get 6 to 8 W-2s annually from different contractors. And let's say number 8's when they graduate. So the first 7 contractors, we just say, thanks for your contribution. They're not eligible to share as beneficiaries. So I would suggest maybe considering the training programs as eligible to receive some of this money back for consideration, because again, multi-employer funding seems to be the only fair and equitable way of programs, quite honestly, that have been existent for over 80 years, since World War II, some over 100 years. I would suggest that's a pretty good track record. If there's no other questions, Mr. Chairman, again, this is a great bill from Chairman Strickland. I believe we can fix it and make it equitable for everybody.
Can I just engage with you just a bit, and it's in a positive sort of way? So what I'm hearing you say is, in the carpentry industry, you would have an apprentice that comes on that works to frame a house as part of the program. I may be oversimplifying that, but then they would go and work for a different, home builder, and then so you would like to say is that if that apprenticeship, just for simplicity, was over 8, let's do over 10 people, since it said $10,000, and it was equally spread among them, you'd like the ability for that monies that were paid to be spread amongst those people that did the work that helped train the individual. Is that the crux of what you're looking for? I'm sorry. Yeah.
In essence, yes, but actually even simpler would be the apprenticeship program be the beneficiary.
Thank you, because I was going to get the senator back up and ask him just that, is, would the right thing be for the apprenticeship program to be the person that entered into the contract, and then it would be a contract between private parties that, in their program that could then decide how the money was handed down. But I think I grasped your point. If there's no questions, and we'll chat with the senator about that.
For example, we've got 3 training education centers, Atlanta, Savannah, and Augusta, and the carpenters, over 1,000 apprentices currently, male and female. At $1,500 training expense per, that's $150,000 annually, just the carpenters are spending, contractors, not to mention all the other building trades crafts that have identical programs. So again, I'm appealing to the sense of fair play and equity here. Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry.
I like the idea of maybe the carpenters need to get with our senator to get this information into the bill that we're talking about now, because I know the kind of work that you do, that the unions are doing and what have you. You've had apprenticeship programs for years and years and years, and know better than to try and get the information that you're sharing into this. So when we vote, we can vote on that.
Do we have anyone further that wishes to speak? We had no one signed up, no one online. Senator, do you want to come back to, and we'll let you close up the. Well,
first off, if there's any questions that. I'm not in the right spot yet on camera.
You may have to lean.
If there's any other questions that you have that the other speakers didn't answer that I was not able to answer. Now it says we're live. If there's any questions anybody has that were not answered by the other speakers, please let me know and I'll work to get those answers for you. In fairness, and Carpenters are a good friend, work together on a lot of stuff. This is the first I've heard of that request, and they may have made it to other people. This is the first I've heard of it. It did not come up in the Senate at all. My concern initially is I don't know how it fits under the model we've set up at all, because we have the model set up where you had an apprenticeship sponsor. The program is looking at the federal program by definition, but you have the whole thing is set up where you have our technical college system board that connects with a sponsor that's an employer. And if you had multiple companies involved, I'm not sure how that initial contract would work, how you can make that flow on the fly like that either. But I will get with him and the other folks that have worked on this and see if there is a way to accomplish that, if there's not already a way to the current language to do it, and get an answer to that, the answer to that question by the next hearing as well.
Pardon me, number 24.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator. And I think you kind of addressed my question is on line 60 about what that contract looks like. And I just don't have the expertise or the experience to know from the technical college what that contract and number of hours of education training required to complete the apprenticeship program. So if you could get us a little information about what the apprenticeship would look like and the completion of the program. Thank you.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the last speaker's point, is it possible, and this is just me asking, is it possible to make it to where it's an and thing or an or thing where the employer sponsor or an apprenticeship sponsor can enter into the contracts? Because the apprenticeship program that comes to mind for me is the IBEW lineman apprenticeship program, where you would have someone that kind of moves around from place to place. So it wouldn't be a specific employer, but the program is still a very, very good program. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of do like a and or in that situation. Just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'll work on getting an answer to that too.
Thank you. Are there further questions, Senator? Senator, I see no further questions.
Thank you for your time.
The one thing I would just ask is take a look with your lawyer hat on, before we're back on the list creation. If we're not making, I don't know if we contemplate additional changes to the bill, I would certainly hate to create a change, but for inserting 2 words at the end of line 70 that said create at least annually. I'd hate that to be the only change we made and it required to go back, for adoption in the Senate, because we know how things can get down the
I'd ask you not
stretch.
to do, if it was just that one change.
No,
but to make other changes.
I would hope you would put on your lawyer hat and read into that.
Yeah.
That shall create annually doesn't prohibit you from creating it more often.
Sure.
But if there are additional changes to the bill, I'd suggest that might be one we would make. With that, let's stay in contact and we will give you. I had intended to hear again tomorrow with the potential doing that. I guess with perhaps needing to work with the gentleman, maybe we will maybe do it on Monday.
Okay.
Rather than tomorrow, just to give you more than 24 hours, because I know you chair a little committee over there in the Senate that I believe you told me earlier had a number of measures.
About
that you-
40 that
you were
crossed
Yeah,
over.
40 measures the
40 of your
senator,
bills.
40 measures the senator has in Senate Judiciary. So we're going to give him more than 24 hours to work on this. This is a good piece of legislation, and we'll work with you to make sure that it has opportunity to get through here and get on the House rules.
All right.
We'll
Thank
help
y'all
with
so
that.
much for your time.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much. If everybody, I'm going to keep us moving here. If folks need to step out and take a break, feel free to do that. But we're going to move on now and go to our presentation surrounding Senate Bill 231. Who's going to be the driver of that? Oh, Senator, there you go. I hadn't seen you. Yes, sir. I was looking at the audience there. I didn't see you. You slept in on us.
Yeah, I try to stay behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah.
Whenever I can.
Yeah, Senator, I think you were here when there's
Right.
sort of been competing language on the thing. The gentleman's, that we're gonna let him talk to us about the idea in general, because I think that's the driving force behind whatever.
Yep.
But we're out for an outcome, not language. So he and I think he has some people here that want to talk to us about that. So that, Senator, please tell us about your
Yeah,
proposition.
thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Definitely want to just kind of give a broad overview of, I think, the intention of what we're trying to accomplish with Senate Bill 231, and really focusing on the population in Georgia, ages 21 through 35. And I'll talk more about why that specific age group and demographic in a second. But some of the comments that we've talked about in the Senate as we've moved this bill forward, it passed through the Senate 51-3. As we view this bill as an important piece of anti-poverty legislation based on a proven model that's effective in 5 states, which will empower real Georgians who are currently stuck in their lives to gain necessary skills that enable them to improve their life trajectory and the lives of their children. Under the intention of 231, our intention is to create a pilot program for persons between the ages of 21 and 35 who have not graduated from a Georgia high school to obtain a high school diploma to enable them to improve their life trajectory for their families. Based on a model called the Excel Centers, and we have some people here that will come and give some comments after I present to go into more depth of what is an Excel Center and that real experience with some data. Based on that model, over 10 years of data demonstrating the program works and empowers people who dropped out of high school to earn an accredited diploma and build the necessary skills to further their education and find a job. This model meets people exactly where they're at and provides the necessary wraparound services support to help them overcome any obstacles that they may be facing that would prevent them from being successful at high school at this time. Examples of wraparound services include counselors and life coaches, childcare, transportation assistance, housing assistance if necessary, and I think we all know that there's a housing crisis in Georgia and across America, tutoring, and at no cost to the student. The WRAP services under our model are paid for by the private sector. So tax dollars, state government dollars, this is something that would not require an appropriation in the future under this model that has been employed in 5 other states. Obtaining a high school diploma prepares families and these individuals for the next step, which might include a better job or career or better pay, or seamless transition to a technical college, industry certification, an apprenticeship, or higher education opportunities. And I come before you today having formerly served as a foundation chair for the largest technical college in the state. So I'm very familiar with the programs, the dual enrollment, the career academies, and everything that takes place in those buildings in our state. Awesome programs. Through a public-private partnership, this bill would create an accredited adult high school exclusively created for this population. It would create a 5-year pilot up to 3 locations, and the locations that we have been discussing would be Savannah, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, and Columbus, Georgia. Georgians ages 21 to 35 who have never graduated from a high school can attend. We know that last year Senate Bill 204 was passed. Senate Bill 204 specifically focuses on the ages of 16 to 21, and 6 of the 9 required high school core classes and is limited to currently to 5 communities. I will tell you that one of the reasons why I decided to take on this bill is for a number of reasons. Personally, this bill doesn't have any impact, obviously, on West Georgia and the district I represent in the 3 counties. But there are 311,000 Georgians without a high school diploma between the ages of 18 and 35. And we do have a workforce crisis. We also have the opportunity to serve and meet individuals and families between the ages of 21 and 35, meet them where they're at in their life. And many of the individuals we're talking about are families and individuals who live in poverty, families, single moms with children, in inner city communities, Latino communities, across this state that don't have access to getting that high school diploma, and I know we can also have some debate too of, what's better, a GED or high school diploma. I think hopefully all of us in this room would agree that a high school diploma carries and demands a greater earning opportunity. And I think as legislators, we hope that as folks cycle out of poverty and fight for their hopes and dreams for their families, that they're going to turn around and make some sort of investment themselves by being able to place food on the table for their own families or pay for that transportation that they can't afford right now, and basic services that many Georgians, for various reasons have encumbered in their families. So we look at this as a very innovative model. I know that this bill has come before the legislature before. I'll say that up front and transparent to that fact. The first time in many years, we've actually got the bill to pass one chamber in the Senate. And I think that, where we're at as a state today is that, and we had this debate in our education committee when this bill came through, is that, there are many models in terms of, and even the bill from my colleague in the Senate that we're working on with you all, to create new pathways and new opportunities. And I think the conversation that we're trying to have today, I think for those between 21 and 35, there is not and unless somebody can correct me or show me the facts, and I'll accept them, but there is not an adult high school in the state of Georgia for people between the ages of 21 and 35. Also, too, for families and maybe, foster children who are adulting out, I'll call it, and what are the next steps to help them, prepare for real life, the circumstances that they may be in, wanting to start a job, create a business, start a family. All of those basic things that I think we're all fighting for, regardless of us being Republican or Democrat, in this state. The other thing I will note is we have had support come from the historical Black colleges and universities such as Savannah State. They've been very instrumental in supporting us through this effort. The National Federation of Independent Businesses, our small business community, is very interested in this bill because as they continue to struggle, and sometimes we're witnessing right now, many small businesses shutting their doors because they can't hire enough people to even just keep basic hours open or even half-day hours open. We've also received support from the Georgia Hispanic Chamber, the Georgia Chamber, and other small chambers across the state. So we've seen wide range support for this bill. I think the opportunity here again is to do something different. And I challenge all of us to think outside the box and be willing to do that. The other cool thing about this legislation is that in the first year, we're Goodwill, they're going to come up here and talk in a minute. They're putting over $6 million of their own money up front to basically build and create these Excel centers. So I'm not coming to you on the first year, and I've had this leaders discussion, I know, with Chairman Martin and my leaders in the Senate and the governor's office. So we're not coming here asking for appropriation. I think we're asking for an opportunity to start the pilot with upfront money for these 3 communities. And also too, the population that we're serving over the 5 years is if you look at the big picture, we're talking about 300 students to start. So we're not talking about a sizable population. I think we're talking about also an opportunity too, where data collection can be done. I think even, the folks that we're working with will probably be open to obviously being transparent and sharing what are the results and that data with the legislature, I think, as we go through this process, because this could be an opportunity also to, to grow, I think, the workforce opportunities we have in various different communities that are sometimes hard to reach, just to be honest. And I think for the technical college system, as we've shared with them, is that the transition opportunity for the adult, the individual who graduates from one of these centers in Macon, Savannah, and Columbus, to transition into a high demand career initiative, maybe with, an initial acceptance letter or whatever it is, to get to that next step. Once they get that high school diploma, there's a powerful opportunity. And I think that this could be really something cool for Georgia to experience and to implement. And I thank the chairman for his wisdom and guidance as we try to figure out, what is the best fix for this. But I think the other thing too is, it's not just a unique skill set, but I think having worked with families in poverty, to understand the dynamic that you're dealing with, this is not the, to be clear, this is not the typical individual who's going to walk into the door of your local technical college. I will tell you that right now. This is not that individual. This individual probably doesn't even know where your technical college is. They probably can't even get to it. They can't find it. And we're talking about families who are probably 150% to 200% the federal poverty level. So we're trying to literally, with a private sector, with a private organization, create a paradigm shift to basically change the dynamics of over time, getting more people out of poverty and into employment, into job training, and contributing to the Georgia economy. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will yield for questions, and then at your appropriate time, let the other folks speak.
Yeah, just do we have questions for the gentleman, or do you want to go on this? We do. Chairman Dickey.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you bringing this bill. I've been involved for the last 3 or 4 years trying to move this, something similar to this along in the House. And I'm a real big believer. I've sat through several presentations from Goodwill where this program has been very successful in some other states. And
Right.
I really appreciate them wanting to bring it to Georgia, even though it would be a pilot program, but I think it's a great start. And you summed up everything very well. I really don't have any questions or any other comments, because I think you covered it all. And those, you're right, the wraparound services, those extra transportation, childcare, those type things to help these workers, these people get into the workforce, get that high school diploma. GED now just does not quite cut it, doesn't have the requirements a lot of companies make. So getting that high school diploma, I think, is a very great first step for these people to get a better job, higher paying job, and so stability in the workforce. So thank you for this. I'm certainly supportive of this, and not just because it's in my middle Georgia area, but it's a great concept.
Well, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just make 2 quick comments. I know in your community, you have a lot of innovative facilities and things that have come online, including, I know the Vector Center nearby and other facilities. I have visited Vector, being the son of a veteran who served in Vietnam in the Army. And I think as we kind of build on that prowess as a state from a competitive standpoint, there are no states in the Southeast that I think are taking on, I think, unique workforce initiatives. Being someone who represents the West Georgia community for counties like Haralson County, from a competitive standpoint, we're in a unique situation, just like I think any border county right now, looking to compete in how we're going to get more workers trained. And those companies, like in the state of Alabama, when they talk about what is Alabama doing for retention, the first question they ask us is, where are you going to go and recruit workers, and how are you going to keep them locally in your community? And I would claim that we have workers and individuals who want to go to work. I don't believe in any statement when somebody says, well, poor people don't want to work, or poor people don't want help. I think honestly that's a bunch of garbage. I think families who are in poverty live, they just need help, and I think direction and coaching sometimes on what is that pathway. And I think we can get there. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
some more questions, let's try to keep them brief in the answer, because I know these folks have traveled in here. We're 50 minutes if we go all the way to our end date. So I'm gonna do that and go down the questions, but ask us to keep it. Number 27.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Since I've been here, I often think about when we're talking about programs below the Macon area, and to
Yes,
see a program like this working in Savannah, having been a social worker, worked in higher education, I think it's one of the most magnificent programs I've heard of. My thing is your outreach and getting the word out to the community. I think that's going to be a tremendous job, because there are so many young people that do not feel good about themselves, and to help them to understand that this is something that is going to be beneficial. If I can do anything to help, please let me know. I am one of the people that you are trying to get now. I came out of a house with no indoor plumbing and all of that, and I know that it was because of others that I am where I am today. So I commend you for what you're trying to do, and I will offer to do anything to help you.
Thank you, Representative. And the only comment I'll make to that is and I'll let the Goodwill folks talk about this, but the facilities where they're going to be located is in the heart of the community. So if we were speaking of Savannah, this is going to be in the heart of, quite frankly, inner city, the African-American community, meeting people where they're at. So other social services, resources that are going to be in the community are going to be nearby, in addition to the support, I think, from the business community working with these individuals. The other thing too, real quick, is, I think I've been a city councilman, I've been a school board member, now a senator. Very rarely do you have somebody from the private sector or, come to you and say, hey, I'm going to invest $6 million. Usually we're trying to go to the private sector and say, hey, you need to have skin in the game. And I think that's a unique opportunity here that you rarely find, especially dealing with the population that we're talking about. So I appreciate the comments.
I want to remind, I'm going to go on to questions, but let's try to be brief. Representative Washburn. Questions. Well, we don't have a bill before us, so we don't have anything to debate. We haven't gotten to, no disrespect to the senator, we haven't gotten to the true story of what's going on. So if you have questions of the senator, let's do those now. Otherwise,
I can yield my time if you want to go ahead and bring them up.
Well, I want to give my members time for questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, is it not true that I am in great support of your program here? It's a great program to rescue people who need rescue, and I'm particularly excited about it being in Macon, or one of the facilities being in Macon. Is it not true also that I have visited the building where it will be, and I've been a big promoter of this for some time? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In short, yes, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Anna Vidarte, thank you for the bill as well.
Good pronunciation.
Thank you. From Gwinnett.
Perfecto.
So I know this is a pilot program, but in the long run, and maybe in other states as well, would this be funded through QBE or HOPE?
So I think that's part of the discussion that we're having now. I think based on it's a very good question, Representative. Depending on where this program is housed. So in the Senate version, it was housed under the Georgia Charter School Commission. So I think the preference, and I'm not going to speak for the chairman or any representative on this chamber, but I think based on the tenets of the intentions of the program, the technical college system seems to where, in terms of where it would house, maybe it would be best. But the unique part of this is we are talking about placing a K-12 type accredited teacher, basically is who the Goodwill folks employ to basically educate somebody between ages of 21 to 35 to get that high school diploma. So their model is very unique. And again, I'm not aware that in the TCSG system, and I know there's TCSG people here, so I'll let them speak to it, but I'm not aware that anywhere recently, in recent memory or currently, we have it set up to where a technical college is basically employed a K-12 individual to provide that education for a high school diploma in a in-person setting, which I think for most of these families, for them to be successful, the in-person setting is where they're going to be most successful versus a virtual setting. And we can get into whole discussion of not just because of the in-person virtual, but the systematic, the cultural, the impacts because of poverty barriers or whatever, as to why somebody might be less likely to be successful in an online setting versus a in-person setting. That's a whole different conversation. That's a very good question.
Chairman, one more, if I may, and this may be more to the Goodwill folks as well. But the distinction that you made between students or Georgians who may not go to a technical college as opposed to this program, if you could provide additional information as to, does this program engage in additional outreach, or is it the wraparound services that ensures greater success as opposed to just TCSG?
Yeah, just real quick and short, very good question. It is the outreach. And I think the work-based model that Goodwill employs, it's not trying to be competitive with the technical colleges or any of our public entities that do awesome work. It's based on that model, that those wrap services, things that basically, if I'm a single mom and I have childcare, then I'm not stressing out about my kid and I can get to class. If I've got transportation, whether it's, a service that's maybe set up in Macon, Columbus, or Savannah, or Uber, or whatever the system is that they use or contract out with locally in the community, then I have a way to make sure I'm always getting to class. I think other situations too, where, there are a lot of families who, are hungry, don't have food in the home. Working with partner organizations like the YMCA and others in local communities where I've seen this. Those other elements basically kind of come into the fold. But as a family member, I'm not having to stress out and worry about that. That's something that Goodwill provides, Goodwill pays for. And if we were doing that in a technical college environment, I don't know how you would coordinate that. And I think that's kind of where I would say, sometimes the private sector and business knows it way better and can build it way better than anything we can do in government. And I think that's the unique opportunity here. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a comment. I know everybody's in a hurry, but I think two things that really stuck out to me was you're meeting and educating people where they're at. And these people are already coming to your facilities, and it's just an opportunity to raise that up. And then the other piece, as you read through the literature, is you're trying to break the cycle, right? And you break that cycle of the high school graduation rate by doing it. These folks, 99% of the time, are probably parents. And so you're breaking that cycle so that when they see their parents have graduated high school, they too will graduate high school. And I appreciate the legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any more questions. I'm going to ask your group. I don't know who's in charge of you're welcome to stay with them, Senator, or if you have other business on around the Capitol as well. And let me thank you all for coming, and I know you're going to have some questions. You have probably a presentation. We have about 40 minutes left. As the senator said, and it's been good. We've had discussions back and forth. I think it's a laudable endeavor that we're trying to make. There's a number of people that can be helped by it. I think the issue is, how best to deliver that. We have an adult and technical education, so some technical and adult education, TCSG, and your wraparound services. So there's a lot of things going around about the funding, and bills that I've seen, I'm just going to be honest and spread it here, seem to be just, I don't see what's going on. Like, one of the things I'll ask you is, we've heard other states, the senator mentioned, we want to have an accredited school here. How long do you think that takes? Are your schools in the other states accredited in their state? Because what we don't want to happen, or what gives me pause, and everybody's excited about it, and I sit in the middle here and have to, I won't use exactly what Mr. Hughes did the other day to describe what my seat was, but it was to be the reasonable person where everybody else is just celebrating. If you remember, you described it a bit differently, but is to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's, and not just pass a piece of legislation that looks to stick a straw in the stream that is the state revenue. So if you could, answer a couple of those things about, are you accredited in other states? How long would you get here? That, and you have the floor. Thank you very much for coming.
So we'll all introduce ourselves individually. Jim Stiff, president of Goodwill of Middle Georgia and the CSRA. I've been president there since 1994 in Macon. And we're part of a federation of 155 autonomous 501c3 charities. There's actually 4 Goodwills that divide up the state of Georgia. Every one of them are extremely autonomous and have their own board of governors. I've got Ruth Knox, Wesleyan College, former president, Paul Jones, president of Fort Valley State University on my board, for instance. So local people in the community that are helping to develop our programs. And I'm going to turn it over to Betsy Delgado to talk a little bit, because your questions were about the national model. So, and all that's been accomplished. So I'm going to let her answer those, and then we'll go back to the local, what we're planning to do in Macon and Savannah.
Thank you, Jim. So I'm Betsy Delgado. I am the Chief Mission and Education Officer for Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana. So we are one of the top 5 largest Goodwills in the country. And this model was really born in, am I okay? In Central and Southern Indiana. We were a Goodwill that, our mission is to disrupt generational poverty. And so we were running the state workforce grant, and we continued to place people in work, and they would come back to us 30, 60, 90 days later, and we would place them again in an entry-level job. And what we learned when we really paused for a moment about 12 years ago to look at this population and understand what was happening, 50% didn't have their high school diploma. And so we started to really think about what could we do differently? What could we do that was innovative to really think about this population and their families? So you guys, Senator Anna Vitardi is a phenomenal representative of this model. I wish I could take him everywhere that I go. He describes it very well, but I'll just give you some statistics. If you don't have a high school diploma, I think you said 99% have children. We have data that says 60 to 70% have children, and they're school aged, right? And so if a child is going home to a parent that doesn't have their high school diploma, it's very hard for that parent to impact the academic rigor of their child's education. What's really interesting is when we took a survey of our students, they told us 50% of their parents had not graduated from high school. And so we have evidence living in our schools, 10,000 students across the country, that this is happening. What you all are describing and talking about is happening. 2/3 of people who don't have a high school diploma live in poverty. And we all know that if you are a child of someone who did not complete your high school diploma, it's living out in our schools, you're 50% more likely to drop out yourself. And so what happened was we just kind of paused for a moment and looked at all the things that we were doing as a Goodwill and understanding what our mission is. And we decided to create this model and really think about how could we disrupt generational poverty and how could we stop that from, children from continuing to inherit that from their parents. And so we built the Excel Center model. Students do receive and walk across the stage with a high school diploma. And we see that as the ticket to everything else, right? A better job, further training, college. About 40% of our students go to college, and they're working and they're taking care of their children at the same time, but really wanted to change that trajectory for adults and their families. So included in this model is a high school diploma, rigorous academic curriculum, rigorous curriculum to make sure that we are meeting all the standards of each state in which we work: Indiana, DC, Arizona, Tennessee, Arkansas. And then I'm bragging about Arizona because the governor there just invested in the Excel Center. So we're going to be opening there next fall. Life coaches, we all talked about the wraparound services. That's the delivery model for the wraparound services. Our students come to us with multiple obstacles to being able to go to school and then continue to attend school and complete. And so the life coach is really that deliverer of that wraparound services, whether it's new tires on your car so you can come to school, or a tutor because you've been out of school for 2 years and you're reading and doing math at a 4th or 5th grade level. We have college and career counselors because included in the model is industry recognized certifications. So certified clinical medical assistants. I loved hearing the apprenticeship presentation because we are building we're the upstream, right, of what you're talking about when you're wanting to put people into apprenticeships. Included is childcare, free transportation, and then CCMA, farm tech, logistics, advanced manufacturing, IT. So our students, our parents, they walk across the stage with very proudly their high school diploma, but also an industry recognized certification. And so they're work ready and they're also college ready. Years ago, our legislature said, we're going to help you with this. We're going to let you pilot this, but you're going to come back to us every 2 years and you're going to tell us how your graduates are doing. And so we've commissioned multiple studies for about 4 or 5 years. And then the University of Notre Dame said, the Laboratory for Economic Opportunity said, we really want to work with you and understand, because their entire focus is understanding generational poverty and lifting up evidence-based models that work to really change the trajectory for families. And we're happy to share those results with you, but I'm going to highlight 2 of them. One is we know that our graduates are making 39% more after 5 years than their peers. And we also know that the outcomes that are described in this research is equitable. The results are not dependent on gender, they're not dependent on race, and they're not dependent on age. And so we think we're onto something here, something that we can translate into communities across the country, but it has to meet the context. So within Savannah or Macon, if there is a workforce, if there is larger logistics events and manufacturing, if there is more healthcare, this school can adapt and adjust to make sure that we are graduating folks with the certifications needed to fill these workforce, to fill your workforce, which is what I've been so excited to hear about today. And the final thing that I will say is this is a solution to generational poverty, right? You are experiencing in your state shortages. This is additive to your numbers. You're counting how many seniors you're going to have. You're counting how many kindergartners are starting right now and who's going to fill the jobs of the future. This 300,000 people that can add into your formula and take on these living wage jobs for themselves and change the trajectory of the lives of their children. So I'm happy after Michael to take any questions. Sure. I apologize. So we have multiple mechanisms through which to make sure the quality of our schools is sustained and really meets the standards of a state. In some states we're charter, in some states we're a private school. We partner very, very closely with we call community colleges or technical colleges to make sure that the quality of our schools meets the rigorous standards of a state. But we are meeting the standards and getting the credits of a high school diploma to make sure that when our students walk across the stage, they're able to, get into your workforce and do all the things. So there are multiple paths to accreditation that we have experienced across the country. And all of them, we really are looking for a rigor and a quality control to make sure that, like us in Indiana, we're continuing to, tell you and to have third-party validation of the results and how these families are doing. Sure.
You've been operating in Indiana.
So we've been in Indiana for 11 years and we have 19 schools. But we started within 2 years, we had 5.
Okay, so, and I mean to be, but
Sure,
this
sure.
is important to me, and it's important to others, is, so we had some counties in Georgia over the years that were on the verge of, or did, lose their accreditation. That was problematic. They were still getting a high school degree when they walked across at the end of the session, but that high school degree. So again, my question, at 11 years, are you an accredited high school in Indiana? Under the same place as a public school is, and what is that accrediting organization?
So we have a governing body similar to you two, that is, Senator Georgia, that is, we have 2 that we work with. Our mayor is able to authorize charters. So we have an authorizing body within our mayor's office that authorizes all of our schools in Indianapolis. And then we have a statewide state charter board that also authorizes. So we have multiple layers of.
So you're a charter
accountability.
school, but not
Yeah.
necessarily public
And our
or private accredited school.
No, and our funding does not come from what we call ADM, which is QBE. It is actually appropriated through a different line item for adult high school specifically. So our mechanism of quality is charter and our funding is then different.
Okay.
It's outside of the DOE.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, pass it to Michael, just an example of how it would work real quick. So Dr. Ivan Allen, Central Georgia Technical College, we were already kind of planning out how the process would work. Right now, we hire from Dr. Ivan a forklift instructor for forklift certification. Same thing, we would hire from Dr. Allen for teaching industry certifications in our independent Excel Center that would operate independent of the technical college, but then our partnership would be our graduates would become his students. And we would have articulation agreements, so they would have to take less classes once they got to the technical college, and they wouldn't have to waste Pell money on remedial classes because we'll be taking care of that remedial education.
Okay, so Jim, let me ask you this, because this is what I want to drill down into. So we're gonna, a suggestion would be to fund Goodwill to then give money back to technical college to send you the instructors to do some of those things. Why wouldn't we just fund the technical college and let them contract with you? And why do we need legislation?
Because you need the legislation because we're talking about a few industry certification instructors. 80% of the instructors will be instructors that will be Excel instructors that have been K through 12 educated. They'll be specialists in secondary education, not post-secondary. We're just trying to make sure that there is a articulation and a ability for somebody to graduate. The graduates have 70% of the graduates at Excel centers, at the 31 Excel centers, have some type of industry certifications when they graduate from high school.
Okay, I'll hold the rest of the question later to Michael.
Good afternoon. Michael Winkler, President and CEO for the Goodwill that covers Southeast Georgia. We're headquartered in Savannah, Georgia, and we would be one of the 3 pilot sites. What I wanted to kind of articulate, because I hear some questions kind of dancing around different mechanisms that we have in our state to make this work. And the thing that I'd like to share is really what Betsy and her team in Indiana have developed is a full educational system. It's 17,000 to 20,000 square feet of space dedicated to supporting up to 300 students to obtain a high school accredited diploma. Alongside of that, and this is where Goodwill here in Macon and out in Columbus come in, we will provide wraparound services, as was mentioned. We'll provide on-site childcare. None of this is at an expense to the individual because we already know that many of these individuals, as the senator alluded to earlier, well, specifically spoke to, they're at 150 to 200% of the poverty line. These are not individuals that are ready to go to a technical college in any way, shape, or form. They don't have the financial means. They don't have childcare. They don't have transportation. They have so many obstacles that first have to be overcome just to get them in the classroom. So we must think of this collectively as a system that has the educational piece and the wraparound services working side by side and intricately together. And what do I mean by that? What does that look like? It means flexible classroom schedules. It means working and meeting individuals where they are, not just on the start of this, but daily, and looking at, and so we really feel very strongly that that system intact is what has produced the incredible results that they've seen over the last 10 years. And so we would just simply say that however the very, very smart folks that are in this room and in the legislature come up with the system, that we keep the system intact. And my last piece, because I was told I should say this again, we're working with a group that is an educational purgatory. They cannot go to a traditional high school. They are very ill prepared to go to a technical college. And so they sit there in our communities every day, toiling in entry-level positions that many of them do not wish to be in. They see things for themselves greater than where they are, and they just simply don't know how to get there. This is an opportunity for us in the state of Georgia to give them a lifeline, to give them a pathway out of generational poverty and a way for them to be successful contributing members of our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, I had to step out during the senator's presentation for another committee, but I know we had a chance meeting in the elevator on the way into this meeting. And I believe the senator mentioned it, but should this move forward, depending on what happens here, we don't do a lot of, doesn't feel like a lot of feel good stuff down here sometimes, but my passion is in foster care. And when you mentioned this to me, the first thing that came to mind for the bill I carried last week that thankfully you guys all supported me pass out of the House of helping these young adults that are aging out of foster care. Should this move forward, I would expect and request some sort of partnership or engagement into the community that of those young adults who are the very people you're describing. And whatever that looks like, I only had an elevator ride up to discuss it with you, but whatever that looks like, I really encourage you to do that. You mentioned Arizona and your excitement there. Arizona has done a phenomenal job with some foster care reform out there, and there's some people out there that I deal with regularly, continuing to come up with better and better ideas. I would encourage you to do that in every state that you operate in. These are young adults who absolutely fit the model that you're talking about and need more help than anybody.
Thank you so much for your comments, and it was lovely to meet you in the elevator. I would add that we see ourselves as a piece of a collective impact model. We partner very closely with others that are serving the same population, whether it be health or work, to make sure that we are doing the same thing. We are supporting foster care. I know the statistics of people in foster care, kids, and I know the statistics of the children of kids and people that have experienced foster care. And so I had written down after I got out of the elevator with you is to go back and look at our data and find out exactly how many students we are enrolling and graduating that are in foster care and getting that back to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I have to say, when I was listening I was reminded of a presentation a couple of years ago. I had the great privilege to listen to by Donna Beagle, and you may be familiar, who came out of generational poverty at the age of 26, 27, and had the opportunity through some circumstances to do her PhD. And that is a very unusual career. And she starts her presentations by saying she's the only one in her family who has never been incarcerated. So when I was reminded of when you talk about the wraparound services, because Donna made the distinction between what the challenges are for people who live in generational poverty. It might be very difficult for us who went through several years of education and we just pick up a book and read it. And I think that is that the difference between the oral culture and the print culture, because imagine if you are someone that leaves school with a reading level of 4th or 5th grade reading level, you cannot fill out a form. There's no way. You cannot fill out any form because you just don't understand what you're filling out. And so these are the wraparound services that probably you will work with these people, understand very well. And I think it's but you need to tell people that is what we're doing, because otherwise people ask, why can't they just go to school? This is why they can't. So I really appreciate what you're doing and I really commend you for that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the additional information regarding the program. It very much seems that this fills in a gap that doesn't exist, and certainly serves a community that is in that educational purgatory. In looking at the bill online as it passed out of the Senate, I do appreciate the pilot program nature, especially to address some of the concerns that this may be a straw into the budget, so to speak. As a 501c3, I was curious, are there different funding sources that y'all are able to use to operate this program such that you could simply, pass legislation that doesn't really require any state funding, at least as to begin with as a pilot? But for example, would you be able to receive grants from the federal government, a foundation, while still having the legislation necessary to address any variances or waivers that y'all may need to operate?
Yeah, I would say yes, because I think that mechanism is super important, especially the quality. I would say I haven't seen outside of one school where that's sustainable and to be able to impact, and, so I think if you're asking me to get started, yes, and I think that was kind of what Senator Andrade was describing to you. But yeah, needing the mechanism to make sure that it's rigorous and that we really are delivering the results and helping people in the way that we say we are is probably very, very important. But I want really the financial and the fiscal responsibility of these schools is local, and as is the quality. And so Michael and Jim, I think.
I'll start and then Michael can finish, but what we're looking for is 6,800 hours for student for the educational part. Everything else, the wraparound, the childcare, the building, the facilities, maintenance, that's all done by Goodwill. Goodwill has multiple sources of funding. Most of it's through running social enterprises that we actually put people that are in training so they can have applied work experience. And so those social enterprises can certainly help to pay for the wraparound, but this is a big bunch of all of a sudden new opportunities that we need support services, support money to be able to do the academic part of it.
And I want to interrupt there because we're right here and, on video and everybody. And this is what I've tried to communicate. And I want to look you right in the eyes. That's where I have pause. Okay. We want 6,800. What if it costs you less? What if it costs you more? I'm skeptical. And I'm just going to say it, not with your organizations, but I'm skeptical when the Atlanta organization has come before us and, asked for tax breaks and pay their CEO close to $1 million. So I don't know you directly, but I know people that do, and they think the world of at least you two. I'm sorry, Ms. Delgado, I don't know anybody knows you that well. So they think the world of you. So I want this to be, I am as transparent as I look opaque to you here. I want to be, verbally transparent. So the pause is not that this needs to get done, but the pause is that I wanted this committee to hear about this and look for a way that, this can be started and alleviate that impediment. It's an impediment for me, and I think it is with some other people, in the House and the legislature, of entering into a contract when you're paying us. There's enough trouble we have when we fund the funding formula at the university system, because we always hear, they don't have enough and we think we're giving them too much, and then they go up on tweet. So I'm hesitant to create a situation, but I wanted to hear about this because then I would like to sit down, perhaps after our meeting tomorrow. We meet from 10 to 12, probably shorter than that, with some members. And I'm going to try to identify some members of the committee with TCSG to talk about how to do this. And it may be toward your $6,800. It may be something else, but a better way to build the railroad. Because I think there is, and I'm just being transparent with you, I think there is a pause to a private, because I'm still uncomfortable. Are we really as accredited as other high schools but we're going to make TCSG have that accreditation when they issue the high school diplomas under Senator Tippin's bill last year. So I want to be honest with you, and that's why I wanted to hear about the idea in general without getting in the specific implementation, because I guess what I'm asking is, the way we refer to it sometimes in our business is, we have secret sauce when we're consulting with people to do that. We want to take advantage of your secret sauce and your wraparound services and your way of implementing, meeting people in the community. But we also want to take advantage of what we think is a pretty strong program that we have at TCSG to merge in with you guys. And so with that, we have a couple more questions, Chairman Carpenter, and I'll let either all of y'all respond to that. But again, I want to say that when I mentioned the Atlanta situation, both of you gentlemen, I have talked to people that are familiar with the jobs you do in your community, and it's been nothing but stellar. So with that,
well, good. I'm glad our reputation precedes.
You're obviously taking the right people to coffee in the morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, and mostly what we do is we just do our job. We put our head to the plow, we focus, and we serve people. give you an example of service. President Clinton signed the Welfare to Work Bill, 1996, 98 to about 2001. The Georgia Goodwills were the largest provider of welfare to work services in the state of Georgia. We helped 6,000 long-term fourth-generation welfare recipients get into the world of work because we had the wraparound services, we had the applied learning in all of our retail stores and our contracts. And those individuals, we then handed off to the technical college system, and most of them never completed a certificate, diploma, or degree because that school system was not ready to be able to serve that population with all those barriers. Poor people need more than one choice, just like rich people get many choices in America and in Georgia. When your daughter's a junior, you take her to many colleges. We're just asking, there to be two choices, that somebody can go to a Goodwill Excel Center and they can be able to get their high school diploma, and then we can hand them off in partnership with the technical colleges.
But this is not true to what Representative Park said. You can do that today. You can make a private school in Georgia and give a high school degree. You can do that without any legislation.
That's true.
Okay.
What I would say is this, and I can speak for my area, and I'm a recovering accountant by training. So when we get into fiscal conversation, I perk up. So the proposed program that we're talking about is not an either or for us in our community. It's an and. It's an additive program. We spend over $980,000 in Southeast Georgia today, annually, $980,000 on the services and programs that we're already providing. In addition to that, we will provide additional wraparound services, the childcare. Childcare alone is probably going to be close to $230,000 a year to pay, because we're going to pay somebody. We're not just going to have folks come in and volunteer and babysit. No, we're going to have an accredited childcare facility within our facility, and we will have to pay, what if it's the YMCA perhaps in a partnership where they're providing the childcare, we have to pay the YMCA to do that. That's additive. That's on top of the $980,000 that we're already spending. In addition to that, there's the transportation costs. In addition to that, there's extra life coaches and other individuals that will be supporting and connecting the individuals that we're working with. In total, in our organization, we've projected an additional need for $550,000 worth of income to support just the wraparound services. So for us in Savannah, the other estimated based on 10 years of experience in 31 different schools, we know that, and it's been pretty steady throughout all different parts of the country, we know it's about $6,800 a student. That would break our back. We do not have the means to provide the direct educational expense and especially on an ongoing basis. The problem with philanthropic dollars is you never know when you're going to get them, and you don't know what the longevity of that commitment would be. So what we're and this is not a money grab, as I understand that you all feel
and I didn't mean, and look, if I can, if you'll allow me, I didn't mean to say that was, I'm just, what I'm getting at is when we do that, I mean, if you look at the bill that came over us, or at least one that was presented to me on the desk, it basically just said, we're going to do these things, and I'd seen the program, but if you look at the letters on paper, so we're going to do this stuff, and the Department of Education is going to figure out how much we need a year to do it. And there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone, if you will, of what did. So, and I'll let you continue, but put your accountant hat on. If you were coming to me, and if I were running a division of the Board of Education, if it was coming there, if I was coming out of TCSG's budget, and you said, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to take this, and we're going to do this, I would have looked for a pro forma of, how many English teachers you think you're going to need, where you're going to do this, how much you're going to, and I haven't seen that yet. And maybe that's just something y'all have never done before. And maybe I am, further, and we're not going to do that today, because we'll get that in front of you. But, those are things I think that help us, get to a point and sit down with TCSG. But please finish, and then we did have a couple questions. I'm sorry.
No, to your point, we do have a pro forma. That's, again, where we got the numbers from. And we feel very confident that we've got a good financial model that we can certainly present and share. We're a transparent organization. Everything that we do is transparently reported on the 990. And, the amount of investment is out there and is apparent in all of the operation centers that we have throughout Southeast Georgia. I would just ask that we work together, and we will share whatever information you all request, but we really feel like this could be a game changer for many communities in Georgia, not just Southeast Georgia.
Fair enough. Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want members of the committee, I just appreciate you, the chairman, your candor and your transparency talking about the hurdles, the funding part of it previously. Very well said. And thank you for putting that on the table for the rest of the committee. I think that's the issue we've run into in previous years with this. So thank you for the way you said that. But could I ask one question? How long a period, and talking about funding, how long a period will it take to get a typical student their high school diploma? Will it be a 1 year, 2 year? How long a period, and getting back to the cost part of it?
Yeah, so it is about a year and 2 months. We do 5 8-week terms a year, and it's really fast paced and rigorous. That's the best way I can describe it. Like we want our students to be able to earn credits and get to that high school diploma because they're working adults or they're adults and they know I need to do this. And so the average is about a year and a month to 2 months, like 6 terms is what I would say. So you think about people are coming to us and they're reading and doing math at a 4th grade level. And so this is intense. Sometimes our classes are they have algebra for 3 hours a day, right? To build up those math skills to be able to go to college and not have to remediate. Right. And then what was the second part of your question?
That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I mean, and if you think about the average person drops out between 15 and 16, we know that's because they're going to work. Someone's been incarcerated, a family member is sick. And so I'm going to work so I can help my family. They're graduating in a year when it would have taken them 2 or 3 years in a traditional setting. So we really have to accelerate this model to meet the needs of the students that are in our building. So it is, and we do have performers for sure. I wanted to answer that for sure.
Charter model that you said charter and private.
Yeah.
How many are charter schools?
Yeah. So the majority are charter schools, and then we have 4 that are private in Missouri.
Thank you, Chairman. She answered a lot of my questions about the time frame of it. You actually asked the question about the money grab. Obviously, money is always important as we sit here. I think, the biggest piece as we sit here, always interested in looking at public-private partnerships as we move and try to come up with private sector solutions for problems. But obviously, this problem is so expensive that it requires the public hand as well. And so as we move forward, obviously I'd love to be part of the conversation, Chairman, is on this legislation, because I think it's an innovative solution. I think there's a proven model in front of us, and I've always been a big fan of best practices as well. And I think that what you have is a good solution if we can figure out that funding mechanism, because I do believe that the mission is pure. I believe the success is obvious, and I look forward to helping you move forward with it.
Thank you.
So one that came to mind was, have you all met with TCSG in terms of, building kind of this public nonprofit model to provide the wraparound services? Because I know the chairman, or my understanding of the chairman is that, we want to, we're very proud of our technical college system here in Georgia, and certainly we want to make sure that the funding is available for that, but to other programs as well, especially in which there's demonstrable success, as in this program. But have there been any conversations with TCSG to perhaps partner with them to provide the wraparound services to ultimately accomplish the same objective?
So our relationship with Savannah Tech, Ogeechee Tech, and Coastal Pines goes back many years, more than a decade. doing a wide variety of partnerships. And in fact, as of today, we work very closely with Dr. Love and Savannah Tech to provide students the supports that they need to get their technical college credentials. As far as the work that we're proposing, the conversation that I had, I probably shouldn't share because it was a private conversation, but it is not my understanding that this is something at the local level that is warmly embraced to be clear, K through 12 education. I can't speak for Dr. Love or any of the other presidents, and they may have I may have misinterpreted what was said, but it feels like this is not something that they really endeavor to embrace.
Thank you.
They may want to run that back by Chairman Tippins before he leaves, but I'll leave that. No, that's fair. And I'm not going to ask anybody anything further. I appreciate Representative Park's question on that, but I mean, I'd like to talk about the conversation with TCSG more at a system level than put it on a department, because I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, with whatever president there is down there, if we're asking them to do something and we're not sending some finances to help them do it, I would expect nothing. They probably think it's a great idea and we'd love to help, but what do I have to stop doing in order to do it? So I think if we want to direct TCSG, it would come down from Commissioner Dozier or Mr. Peavy there, which and I mentioned to Ms. Hughes yesterday is our next step. I understand there have been conversations, systemic conversations between them and you and your model, and they haven't occurred with me in the room and with some people in the committee here. So I'm gonna invite you all, and as I have the technical college system to have those conversations. And we may or may not, have something to bring back to the committee. I'm always optimistic, but we're going to do that. And Representative Park, you've talked yourself into an invitation unless you wish to decline. So I'll make you aware of that meeting. Anything further? We have gotten close to time. We have to give up the room. And we would remind folks to stay around for just a minute so I can announce our next meeting. But did you guys want to have anything? I think the senator had to go to another meeting, which is absolutely fine. You guys have done a great job with doing that. And we'll, of course, talk to you guys after the meeting here about getting together if you guys are going to be in town, and of course, the senator.
Yeah.
But anything further in closing?
I would just say we can talk then in that about really the examples of that continuum that you're describing of where we, help, and then where the students continue to go on to technical college. And so we can talk about that in that meeting. And then.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, if anyone else has an interest in working on this, send a note to the office and we'll take that under advisement. We'll put a group together. But with that, thank you very much for coming. I don't think we have additional items on the agenda. I do want to remind the committee 10 o'clock tomorrow. We'll make that. It can be a hybrid. It'll be a hybrid discussion. But we do intend, the chair would intend if it be the will of the committee, I don't have it's on the front of page here, would look to move on SB 333 and SB 397. We've had those before us before today, and I sounded them earlier today and asked questions and had none. So we'd love to be in a position to move those tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Again, will be a hybrid meeting. Secretary of the committee, Representative Bentley, did you have something?
Yes, and I'll be very brief. I just want to make sure that everyone knew that I'm sorry I had to step out, but I was listening. Macon, Georgia. I'm Peach County. I represent Peach County, Fort Valley State. Dr. Jones, yes. So I want to make sure you knew that I was listening, and I definitely support the great work of Goodwill. Yes.
Thank you, Representative. If there are no further business before the committee, I know there are places people have to be. I thank everyone for their attendance. Thanks for the presentation. We'll stand adjourned if there are no objections, and without objection, we're adjourned.